Hi, well, good afternoon. I'm Nancy Cohen from the Posnack JCC in Davie, Florida. And I want to welcome some of my other JCC associates, Stephanie Elwitz from the Levis JCC, Ann Hornstein from Alper, Jody Cutler from Mandel, Noam Shumak from Miami Beach, Danny Reed from Miami Beach. And I don't know if anybody's on from Michael and Russell, but if anybody's there from Michael and Russell, welcome to you too. So it's my pleasure today to introduce Andrew Mellen. Andrew has written this amazing book, which it's filled with great advice. I mean, I went home after I started reading it and I organized my Hanukkah decorations. I had an empty shelf. It's really got some great ideas. Andrew, currently lives in San Diego. I guess he was a Virgo because he's Virgo man. He's a professional organizer and a life coach, and he's been featured widely in all kinds of media, including Oprah and the O Magazine, HGTV, and the DIY Network, and IMPR. And I think he's going to be an amazing, full of great ideas to on how to organize and unstuff your life. So without further ado, a couple of reminders. Please make sure um, you put your questions in the chat. And if you haven't bought the book will be available through, and I believe Stephanie or Anne will put that information in the chat as we go. So without further ado, Andrew, I'm going to let you take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that lovely introduction. And everybody, I'm so happy to be here with you all. Let's jump right into it. All right. This is our agenda for our session today. As I mentioned just before we started the recording, right? My third book is called Calling BS on Busy. It's a time management book. I have a zero tolerance for meetings without agendas. I won't go to them. I work for myself. I can make my own rules. This is just showing you that I'm walking my talk. I know where we're going today, not my first rodeo, not my first time doing a version of this presentation. And for those of you who are a little type A and like to know what's going to happen before it happens, this is what's going to happen. So now you can sit back and relax, a safe driver, and you're in good hands. All right, now we're going to do probably the most woo-woo thing we're going to do the entire time that we're together, and that's we're going to take 3 deep breaths. The brain science tells us that in as few as 3 deep breaths, you can completely reset your central nervous system. So if you're ever having one of those days where you feel like the day is galloping away from you, you're feeling a dollar short and a day late, and just in that place of, it just gets worse and worse, and I can't seem to get caught up, the natural inclination is to try to chase after the day and catch up with it. The brain science tells us if we can do something that might be slightly counterintuitive, which is pause and take 3 deep breaths. It's like rebooting your phone or rebooting your computer. You reset your central nervous system. It takes literally 30 seconds at the most. And so we're going to do it right now as a way to set ourselves up for the rest of the time that we're together. This is a great technique anytime you've got a gathering of people together, whether it's a professional meeting or a personal meeting. People show up scattered. They come thinking about where they've just been. They think about where they're going to go after this event. And it's hard for them to just be in the real moment in real time. And this is a great grounding exercise. So what I'm going to suggest we do is just stretch it out a little bit. Let's open up our rib cage. Let's open up our bodies. Let's be in our body. We have these amazing bodies. They might be a little crunchy and a little stiff, but they still allow us to move around, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So shake it out a little bit. Let's exhale together. And here we go. 1, 2, 3. Like to breathe in on a count of 5, exhale on a count of 5. I didn't say that up front. Here we go. Second breath. 1, 2, 3. Works every time. I'm sure everybody feels a little calmer, a little more centered now. All right. Now I'm going to invite you to set your intention. It's the beginning of a year here. You don't have to set a New Year's resolution, but you can think about, when you think about clutter, disorganization, what would you like to see come out of the hour that we're together, let alone what would you like to see for 2025? And if you've got any conversation that crops up of, oh, well, I'd love this, but blah, 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 it's impossible for me, I'm going to invite you to just set that aside for the time that we're together. Let's imagine that we're going to break the mold, and whatever you have historically done or not done successfully is not going to be how you're going to do it going forward. I feel pretty confident. I've been doing this work for almost 3 decades, and I have worked with over 500,000 people all over the world. So while you all might be quite exceptional in lots of ways, I'm going to bet that when it comes to clutter, you're not that special. And I say that with love and respect, right? I mean, you're special in lots of ways. Your clutter and disorganization does not make you unique. So just take 15 seconds and set an intention for yourself. Awesome. All right. And now let's do a little show and tell. As I said, I've been doing this work for a long time, and my work began, uh, when I talk about this in the book, 28 years ago, when I thought I got a gig well, I did get the gig co-producing an award ceremony at the Kennedy Center, but that led to what I thought was going to be an assignment of working for a Nobel Peace Prize winner to organize his photographs. That ended up not happening. But from that, because I said yes and not no, here I am today. So this was a private client's home in Manhattan. That's what it looked like when I showed up. I do want to call your attention, in the lower right-hand corner, you can see my friend Peter Walsh's book upside down. It says, Let It Go. That's Peter's book. Apparently she bought the book but never read it, because this is what it looked like when I showed up. This is what it looked like a week later. Still stuff, but 80 contractor bags had left in that 1 week of recycling and garbage to get us to here. This was the bedroom in that apartment. Hard to get a good night's sleep in a room like that, yeah? And again, I understand this is an extreme case and there's some mental illness here without judgment, right? And these are extraordinary circumstances, and hopefully none of you are living in circumstances like this, and people do, right? And that's what it looked like after a week. So this was a garage down on the Jersey Shore. That's what it looked like when I showed up. Clearly not room to park a car. And this is something that fascinates me, right? We have these cars, these assets, 30, 40, 50 or more $1,000. We leave them out exposed to the elements. You wouldn't leave a bag of cash or $50,000 sitting in your driveway, would you? But we do that with our automobiles instead of being able to park them in the garage. This is what it looked like when we finished after a weekend together. This was an office in Newton, Mass. I want to draw your attention in the upper right-hand corner. You should be able to see a little bit of cat wallpaper poking through. That's what it looked like when I showed up. And again, this woman, an art instructor, professor at a university, had a great story about being creative. And as a creative person, organization was not her strong suit. I worked in the theater for 25 years. That was my first career before I started to do this work. You can be creative and organized. They are not mutually exclusive. So this is what it looked like when I showed up. This is what it looked like a week later. Lots of cat wallpaper. Also, I will point out that every single container that you see was already on site. So sometimes we think we're going to go shopping at the container store and that's going to get us organized. You don't need to go buy the containers. Chances are you already have the containers. So I would say, let's simplify first, and then we'll use what's on site before you go shopping. You're not going to shop your way into organization. This was a project that I did in the Poconos, and I was also the designer on this project. So this is what it looked like when I showed up. This was a 2-story home in the Poconos. That's what it looked like when I showed up. That's what it looked like when I finished. So pretty amazing, huh? Maybe I really am the most organized man in America. All right, we're going to talk about some of the costs of disorganization. because when we think about organization, it's really important to live in the math. Like the story is going to tell us there's too much to do, not enough time. The math is 24 hours in a day, 60 minutes in an hour, 168 hours in a week. It's very simple math. And so we don't want to live in the story. We want to live in the math. It's going to make things much easier for us. The first statistic I'm going to share with you is that 80% of the information that you're holding on to. So if you think about your downloads folder, you think about your filing cabinets, you think about the computer desktop, 80% of that stuff you're never going to use again. And this is how powerful story is. Some of you might be thinking, oh, Andrew, you don't know me. I am an amazing researcher. The things I'm holding on to will definitely come in handy someday. I don't know when, but someday they'll be useful. And this is what I want to say to you. Excuse me. In the almost 30 years that I've been doing this work, I've worked with Nobel Peace Prize winners. I've worked with kings and queens of industry, CEOs of Fortune 50 companies, award-winning filmmakers, artists, psychologists, psychiatrists, MDs, attorneys, accountants. I have yet to meet the person who is the exception to this rule. So if you just look at where all of that information is currently residing and settle into the concept that maybe you too, 80% of that stuff you're never going to touch again. All right. The next statistic is my favorite statistic, and that is that the average adult tells 200 lies a day. I'm not calling any of you a liar. I'm just pointing out that 200 times a day, you will mostly be talking garbage to yourself. You'll be telling yourself negative self-talk. Sometimes it might come out of your mouth and it might be something like, hey, Stephanie, I'm so sorry to bother you, but. Now, if I was sorry to bother Stephanie, I wouldn't be bothering Stephanie, right? But we say it as if it means something. I'm so sorry, but. So this is an opportunity. It's not a gotcha moment, but this is an opportunity to look at how do we talk to ourselves and how do we talk to other people? Because I could just as easily turn to Stephanie and say, hey, Stephanie, I'll bet you had a plan for how today was going to unfold. We now have to, it's all hands on deck. We've got to get this report out by 3 o'clock this afternoon. I need you to stop whatever you're doing. We're all going to be working on this. And at 3 o'clock, you can resume whatever you had on your agenda. And if you need any help reprioritizing, I'll help you figure out what you should do first, given that the day doesn't look the way you thought the day was going to look. Same outcome, no lie. And the last statistic I'll share with you is that the average person will waste 1 year of their life looking for lost or misplaced items. An entire year of your life. And as we get older, right, I mean, those years move faster and faster. None of us want to lose an entire year. And I call this nickel and diming ourselves out of the year of our life because it's 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. We tell ourselves one of our 200 lies, right? I'm going to make up that lost time. Here's the sobering truth about that statement. Once the time's been spent, you can't get it back. You can bank money, but you cannot bank time. So if you tell yourself, I'm going to get up extra early tomorrow morning, it is 3:30 for everybody in your time zone. It's not 3:30 for you and 4 o'clock for the poor schmoes that got up at the same time you did. It's the same time. So we want to stop using funny math when we start talking about things and actually live in the math as we're making our choices going forward. So we can reclaim that time and not waste any more of it as we move forward. All right? Underlying everything is our mindset, how we think about stuff, followed by how we feel about stuff, and ultimately how we then act with stuff. So this is a very simple way for you to be clear about this, right? Everyone is born organized. None of you were born missing the organizing gene. It's a lie. It's one of your 200 lies. They've mapped the human genome. There is no organized gene. We came into the world naked with nothing except an umbilical cord. So all of the things that we've accumulated over the time that we've been on this planet is us. We didn't arrive with it, and even King Tut, right? Like, you're not going to leave with it. You're going to leave, and it's all going to be left right where the last place you touched it and set it down. That's where it's going to be until somebody comes in behind you. So this idea that somehow you're faulty or defective and you're missing a key element is just one of your 200 lies. regardless of neurodivergency, ADHD, OCD, any form of mental illness, if you want to get organized, you can get organized. You might have to work a little harder. You might have to work in smaller increments of time where you can stay focused, but it is completely within your grasp. I've worked with a lot of diverse people in the time that I've been doing this work. I've yet to meet a person who can't adopt these simple behaviors and change their life if they're willing to do the work. So this is just a reminder, and this is, I think, the first chapter of my book. You're not your stuff, right? I mean, the Louboutins, they're beautiful. They're not you. The Brioni suit, the Birkin bag, right? The Gucci, the Louis Vuitton, they're lovely to have. They aren't you. As you look around the world, right? In somebody's eyes, we're all going to come up short. We're going to be judged by the outside world on the neighborhood we live in, where we send our kids to school, who we're married to, what we eat, the car we drive, where we work, what's on our back. Regardless of how much time we spend trying to rearrange the exterior world, in someone's estimation, we're going to come up short. So it's a waste of time, ultimately, to spend that much time focused on the externals. Have nice stuff. I'm all for having nice stuff. Let's just not have it define who we are. All right? And focus on, this is a big tip, focus on what you want, not on what you're letting go of. When you decide to deacquisition something, we all have that same pang in the middle of our chest. Oh, but I love that thing. Oh, I remember where it came from. All of the story, I get it. It's very real. And the upside, the glass half full mindset is, I have this thing that I have an attachment to. I'm willing to consider letting it go because it's going to open up more space, more time in my life, which is really what I want more than the individual item. Glass half empty, everything's precious. Glass half full, not everything is precious. Some things can be let go of to make room for new opportunities, new experiences, new relationships. Along those lines, we want to focus on the solution, not on the problem. Problem's self-evident. If you look at your kitchen counters, if you look at your nightstand, if you look at your coffee table, if you look at the inside of your purse, you look inside the trunk of your car, you're presented with the problem. You can see the stuff, your closet, your attic, your kitchen, your garage. You can see what the problem is. You don't need to focus on that. It's self-evident. Let's get into solution. That's where the real meat is and where the ability to make concerted and sustainable change happens. All right. And so to that end, we're going to, as I said, focus on how you think about stuff, how you feel about stuff, and how you act with stuff. Oh, sorry. And this, anybody familiar with this slide? Have you ever seen something that looks like this circle? Whether you have or you haven't, I'm going to break it down for you. Our thoughts and our beliefs inform our feelings. Our feelings inform our actions, and our actions are directly responsible for our results. So if we've got some stinking thinking, if we're thinking small, glass half empty, scarcity, if we're thinking that, chances are we're feeling puny, we're feeling beat up, we're feeling overwhelmed, we're feeling stressed out. When we feel like that, objectively speaking, we don't take strong, focused, clear, concise actions. We take half-baked efforts. We live in a world of compromise. We feel overwhelmed. We don't do our best. We're feeling shaky, or we don't trust ourselves, or we're feeling put upon. And then we don't get great results. And we can use that information to reinforce more of this thinking. See, this just proves to me that I'm faulty, that this is impossible, this is beyond me. No. If instead we adopt a mindset that says, I spent 45 minutes with this guy at the JCC. I'm going to check out his book. I'm going to see if any of this stuff actually works. I'm feeling, in spite of myself, somewhat optimistic and curious. As a result, you might take better, stronger actions. If you get better results, you can use that to reinforce your thinking. Oh, see, I was a little skeptical, but I tried a few of the things he suggested. I actually got some good results. I'm feeling optimistic. I'm going to try a few more of them, right? Failure breeds failure. Success breeds success. If we can address your mindset and how you're thinking and feeling about stuff, you will take stronger, clearer, more concise actions. You will get better results. All right. How many people have heard of Marie Kondo or read Marie's book or any of her books? Anybody? Right. So Marie talks about things sparking joy. And this is as snarky as I'm going to get, right? Many of us in the world of professional organizing talk about, like, my toilet brush does not spark joy. I'm very fond of it. I'm not interested in putting on rubber gloves and scrubbing the toilet with my hands and a sponge. I like my toilet brush. I wouldn't say it sparks joy. I'm going to keep it. So I think it's an easier way to think about this and reframe it to, does it make my life more comfortable? Does it make my life more convenient? Does it make my life more beautiful? Art doesn't necessarily do anything functional in my life, but it certainly inspires me. I wouldn't want to live in a world devoid of art. So I think rather than worrying about does it spark joy or doesn't spark joy, think about, does it make your life comfortable? Does it make your life convenient? Does it make your life more beautiful? And here's two more adjustments I want to suggest. Instead of thinking about I have to get organized, why don't you think about, of all the things I have to do, I have the opportunity to get organized. I have more than I need. Not bad. There are places in the world. I am not talking about unstuffing your life, right? There are some people, certainly we just have to look at Ukraine, we have to look at Gaza, places all over the world where people do not have too much stuff. We don't need to feel guilty about the fact that we have more than we possibly need. It does help us, though, to soften into a sense of gratitude rather than being put upon, which just leads us to this other, a related idea, which is that if you have more than you need, you're in a state of abundance. It's very easy in the glass half empty mindset to feel put upon and to feel overwhelmed, to feel the burden of, ugh, I have all of these things I have to deal with. What a blessing that you're not lacking for anything. In fact, you have more than you need. You've won. So from that point of view, it becomes much easier to let things go. Instead of trying to fight with stuff, if you could literally just say, thank you for being present in my life. You served me at one time. You no longer do. I'm now ready to release you. I promise you, you will feel things leave much quicker than if you are in that kind of tussle with things, thinking that you're going to fight with them. Clutter is nothing more than a decision you deferred. You set something down. You told yourself one of your 200 lies. You said, I'll get back to that later. And you meant it. You didn't think you were lying to yourself. You really thought, later, I will definitely deal with that when I have more time. And when exactly will that be? When has a time ever arrived in your life that showed up with no strings, no obligations, no conflicts? It was just like, oh, look, I have a completely unstructured day, nothing to do. I could do anything I want to do. What will I do? I think I'll go out into the garage and organize it. Not. Right? On that day, you thought, oh, I think I'm going to go play another 8 holes of golf. I'm going to go visit some friends. I'm going to go play with my grandkids. I'm going to go volunteer someplace. I'm going to go do something. I'll organize on that the next rainy day. That'll be the day to go in the garage. And then on that rainy day, you're like, ugh, I don't want to go out in the garage. It's rainy and miserable. I think I'd go to a movie. I'll call up a friend. Maybe we'll go get lunch. I'll do it later. So if you think about, if you just look around your home and you imagine every individual thing that you set down, and then one of your strategies was, I think I'll make a pile of all the things that go together and I'll put them all away at the same time. That's good time management, right? Why do them one at a time when I could just make a little stack or a little pile or a little basket or a little box of all the things that belong together? Is this making sense to anybody? Is it resonating with anybody? Does it sound familiar? All right, how many people are old enough to remember Dragnet? Raise your hand. So you remember Joe Friday? He would show up on people's doorsteps and say, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. That's how he's going to solve the crime. We want to channel our own inner Joe Friday. And if for any reason you're not old enough or you don't remember Dragnet, maybe you remember Killing Eve, or you remember Regina King and Lydia Adams, or Luther, or Vera, or Sherlock Holmes. I don't care, the detective, right? You pick a detective that resonates with you. The point is, we want to focus on the facts, not the story. The story is the sticky thing that keeps us bound to the objects. The facts are very clean and simple. Now, if you want a simple life, you want to make simple choices. And so the example here that I'm showing you is this clamshell, right? They sell it to us. They tell us the lettuce is triple washed, and this is a compostable plastic container. It's made out of corn plastic, so it'll melt. Except it won't melt in your backyard. Your greens and browns in your compost pile will not get hot enough to melt this. It has to go to an industrial compost pile that gets warm enough to actually melt this plastic. So the promise is salad in a tub, and we can be good stewards of the environment. We can also melt down the plastic like it never existed. It'll just disappear into the ground and become worm food. The reality is I found sand in the bottom of these clamshells, so I still wash the lettuce. And now I have a clamshell that I have to rinse out and put in the recycle bin. So versus if I go to the green market and buy a head of lettuce that just came out of the ground, I know exactly what I'm getting. I expect it to be dirty because it just came out of the ground. So my expectations and my reality are in alignment. Second, this will become worm food in 6 months in my backyard. This will totally melt. So what I want to invite you to do now in the chat is to think about one thing in the last year or two that you've brought into your life that came with the promise, oh, this is going to revolutionize my organization or my time management. This is going to make everything so much simpler and easier. And in fact, it just made things 3 times more complicated. It could be a smart watch or, a Fitbit or something. It could be an app for your phone or for your watch. Could be, certainly a couple of years ago when I started teaching online in a much more focused way because of COVID, right? People had bread machines that, I'm going to make all this free time. I'm going to make fresh bread every week. They made bread once, still sitting in the box in the garage, right? Or I got an Instapot, or I got a blender, whatever it is. I don't care what it is, but use the chat. I'm going to give you just a minute or two to talk amongst yourselves and identify one thing that came with the promise of it's going to make things better. It actually made things a little more complicated, and now you got another thing you got to get rid of. It's not a gotcha exercise. Don't be embarrassed. You don't have to reveal anything that feels too tender. But chances are everybody's got something they can put in the chat. It's great to see the stuff coming in. A TV remote, chair yoga, crockpot, soup emulsifier, awesome. Exercise equipment. Very good. Keep them coming. Oh, Barbara, well, I hope that if you pick up a copy of my book, it is the last book that you'll read on the subject. Excellent. Picking up a theme here. I mean, and it's good. Again, zero judgment. I mean, we don't know each other. I'm just telling you, zero judgment from me. I've been doing this work for a long time, and I love how equalizing these kinds of exercises are, because we think I'm the only person. Everybody else has it together. They figured out the secret recipe for getting and staying organized, and there just must be something wrong with me. And it's ironic, right? Because chances are many, if not all of you, have gone to a university. You might have advanced degrees. Chances are many of you have been quite successful in business. You've raised families, you've accomplished lots of things, and yet something as simple as a rice cooker or a carpet cleaner has become a bête noire. It's become something that, is like, what am I going to do with this thing? So it's just great. Awesome. Very good. Thank you all. I'm going to ring the bell for you all. All right, let's keep moving. So I love this concept and this quote, right? Winners do what they have to do. Everyone else does what they want to do. So if you want to be a winner today, whatever that means to you, we're not competing against each other. We're only competing against who we were yesterday. Winners do what they have to do. Everyone else does what they want to do. I share this story often, right? Like Michael Phelps won 14 gold medals at the Olympics. He could have stopped then. He went back for another set of the Olympics and picked up another 5 gold medals. He's in a swimming pool every morning at 6 a.m. Doesn't matter if his mom wants him to take out the trash. Doesn't matter if his friends want to get high with him. Doesn't matter what else is going on. He's in a swimming pool every morning at 6 a.m. If you want to achieve exceptional results, whatever those are to you, you need to do what's required of you to get those things done. How many people here have read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers? In the book, Malcolm talks about roughly 10,000 hours to master a skill, to be an outlier, to be truly exceptional at a skill or a craft. I've probably easily spent 10,000 hours as a professional organizer. I'm not the point. The point is, if you're holding yourself up to people who are outliers and you're not willing to put in that amount of time, again, failure breeds failure, success breeds success. Likely is you're going to feel crummy about your results because you're in your mind competing with people who are completely committed and deeply invested in achieving extraordinary results. Sometimes a B or a B plus is a fine grade. You don't need to get an A on everything if you're not interested in putting in that much time. And for the things that do matter, put your attention and time there and let yourself off the hook the other places, because you're just going to, again, feel miserable. And if you start to feel miserable, right, stinking thinking, feeling bad, crappy results, crappy actions, crappy results, you're just going to reinforce that mindset. You would be much better off just letting yourself off the hook and say, it's good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's much better than it was, and it's functional. I can stop there. In my world, I don't want you. You don't have to live like I do. But you should never have to spend any of your free time looking for your keys or your phone or your or your wallet or your bag or your living will or something that actually matters to you. All of that would be wasted time, and I don't want that for you. So, when the house is literally on fire, urgent and important are completely in sync. And when the house is not literally on fire, urgent will almost always demand your attention over important, right? It's just the nature of it. Urgent is loud, it's busy, it's shiny, it's flashy. Important is quiet and steady. So it's very important that we know what our core values are, and not in a vague sense of like, oh, I know what's important to me. My family is important to me. And then without being overly aggressive or confrontational, I would just ask you to consider, have you ever been late to pick up a kid or a grandkid? Have you ever been late for a meeting with somebody because you had one more email to answer or one more phone call to reply to, or you just didn't budget well and then you ran into traffic and you were late, and you have a perfectly good explanation or excuse for why you were not on time, but you were not on time, right? So in those moments, what was most important to you was whatever you were doing, instead of budgeting enough time to show up on time. And again, that's not a gotcha, judgy thing. It's just an opportunity for us to look at, I'm not always in integrity about the choices that I'm making. I want to be, and I still get lost in doing things because I think I'm just going to get this out of the way real quick, and it is never real quick. All right? How many people here have seen the movie The Wizard of Oz? Anybody? So, 20 minutes into the movie, Dorothy's house lands on the witch. Glinda shows up and says, "Ooh, grab those ruby slippers, put them on your feet. Don't take them off or anything," and Glinda leaves. Then all kinds of chaos ensues, right? Her sister shows up. The other wicked witch shows up. She wants the shoes. Dorothy was told, "Don't take them off my feet." Flying monkeys, fireballs, poppies, water, the broomstick, all of these things happen. Even she finally gets to the professor who's going to put her in the balloon and take her home. Toto runs out of the balloon. He takes off without her. She's stranded in Oz. And at that moment, literally 5 minutes before the movie's over, Glinda shows back up and says, "Oh, did I not tell you about the secret of the shoes? If you just click your heels 3 times, you'll be back home. Lickety split. Did I omit that at the very beginning? I'm so sorry. Here, that's the secret," right? The takeaway here is we all have the ruby slippers on our feet. We all know the difference between urgent and important. Particularly at our age, we've already spent time with somebody who's leaving, right? They've got a diagnosis, something happened, and the clock is ticking very loudly and finitely. And in those moments, it's very easy to figure out what's urgent versus what's important, right? What's on sale at Nordstrom, not so compelling unless they need something. What's happening down the hall at the concert, down the street at the concert hall or at the theater, if we're not going to bundle them up and take them to the show, we're going to miss it. It's not that crucial because we want to spend time with the people we love. So we all know how to tell the difference between what's urgent and important. We just don't often use that skill in the moment we get tripped up in the story, right? Now, if you'd please join me in doing this, this is the organizational triangle. And I want you to repeat after me. One home for everything, like with like, something in, something out. Let's do that one more time. One home for everything, like with like, something in, something out. It's all you need to know to get and stay organized. 3 rules. The first 2, one home for everything and like with like, will get us organized. The third one, something in, something out, will keep us organized. Don't freak out about that one. We'll get there in a minute. One home for everything means everything has one home, only one home. So where you keep your keys can be different from where I keep my keys, but your keys have a home, my keys have a home. They can only ever be one or two places: in our hand unlocking something or in their home. You apply this rule, you'll find anything in 30 seconds or less, guaranteed. Like with like means all like objects live together, not most of them. So we don't keep most of the tools in the toolbox in the garage, but we keep the Phillips head screwdriver in the junk drawer in the kitchen because we've got a story. The knobs on these cabinets are always a little loose. I don't want to go all the way out to the garage to get that screwdriver. I'm just going to keep it right here at my fingertips. It's going to make my life so much easier. Except you don't remember that. You go out to the garage, you look for that screwdriver, you don't find it. Maybe you go to the hardware store and buy another one. 3 weeks later, you're digging through the junk drawer. You're moving the pizza delivery menus out of the way, the dead batteries, the dried pens without caps, maybe some leftover IKEA hardware that you left in the drawer just in case. Why would they put it in the box if they didn't want me to keep it? All of that crap gets pushed out of the way. Bread twist dies. There is the screwdriver. And your first thought is probably, who's the idiot who left it here? The second one is one of your 200 lies. Oh, wait, that was me. This was my great time management strategy to keep it right here at my fingertips. The third one is another one of your 200 lies. Now that I remember, I'll never forget that this is where I put the screwdriver. And in 30 seconds, it will be out of your mind again. One home for everything and like with like will get you organized. I guarantee you. The trick is staying organized. And for that, something in, something out. You live in a 5,000 square foot house, you got a 1,000 square foot walk-in closet, you can have 500 pairs of shoes, I don't care. But when you're ready to buy the 501st pair, it must be because you're going to retire one of the first 500 pairs. It's just very simple math, right? You can't put more in than you have room for. That's where clutter comes from. So there are no rules. No professional organizer should tell you you're only allowed to have 20 pairs of shoes or 3 hats or 2 scarves. You can have whatever the space will contain. You just can't have more than that. And so when something new comes in, something else goes out. And again, if you think about it, if you've ever said there aren't enough hours in the day, why? Why would you spend a moment of your precious non-renewable resource, time, shopping for something you do not need, instead of doing one of those things on your to-do list that you keep telling yourself, someday I'm going to write the great American novel. Someday I'm going to do more volunteer work. Someday I'm going to take that trip around the world. There is no someday. It's only today. All right? This is your new best friend. I'm going to invite you from this day forward to not talk in narrative goals like I'm going to clean the garage until it's finished. Say instead, I'm going to go out and work in the garage for an hour. And then set the timer. When the timer goes off, you actually did what you said you were going to do. You're going to work for an hour uninterrupted. That's it. You don't know what finished is until you get to finish, but you do know what an hour is because you can tell time. So let the timer keep score for you. And this is good for work and at home. It doesn't matter. Instead of speaking in narrative-based goals, I'm going to work on this until it's complete or till it's finished, just shift that to, I'm going to work on this for X amount of time. Barring ADHD or neurodivergency, 15 minutes on the low end, 3 hours on the top end. Brain science tells us after 3 hours, there's diminishing returns. You can set the timer for another 3 hours, but after 3 hours, you do need to take a break and go do something else. All right? People often ask me, where do I start? So you can go big or you can go fast. It doesn't matter. You're going to get to the same place. If you're feeling on fire, go to the sad, scary corner in the basement. If you're feeling a little puny and beat up, go deal with your countertops in your kitchen. Pick up the recycling. Take it out. Open some junk mail. You're going to touch everything either way. So there's no point in freaking out about it. You might as well just do what feels right in the moment. All right? It's important that we have a home for the keys, for the phone, for the wallet, and the bag. I have a home for my phone in every room that I'm in. I have a decorative dish. The phone, when I'm not talking on it, is in the dish. It's not just on the countertop. And that way, I don't ever have to say, hey, could you call my phone? I don't know where I left it. Let's see if it rings. And then it's on silent. It's not even vibrating. I don't know where it is. So everything has a home, including the things that we use on a daily basis. All right. I do need you to know that it will get bigger before it gets better. I can't change that. When you go into your closet and you start to pull out all that dead technology and you lay it out on the floor to figure out what you're going to keep and what you're going to let go of, and you discover, oh, there's 3 dead printers in here. There's 13 USB cables. There's 32 phone cords. Where did all this crap come from? It's going to look bigger. It's the same number of things. It just, when it was shoved into the corner, it took up less volume, but it's the exact same number. So don't freak out about it. Ask yourself, this is an easy thing to do when you open up your closet. Would I buy it today? It's a yes or no question. You don't need to feel bad about it, but just if you wouldn't buy it today, maybe you could let it go. And these are some simple questions you can ask yourself about stuff. Now, I worn it in the last year or the last 2 years. The only exception for this is couture and formal wear. I have a tuxedo. I don't wear it every year, but I have a tuxedo. Why would I get rid of it? Does it go with anything else I own? Did you buy that one crazy jacket and you thought you were going to build an outfit around it, and 15 years later you still haven't? Is it damaged, stretched out, shrunk, or faded? Here's the sad news. Your favorite sweatshirt that you got bleach on when you were doing the laundry that you tell yourself now is like your yard work sweatshirt. It's not the bleach isn't going anywhere. And if the waistband the elastic waistband is stretched out of your sweatpants, tomorrow it's not going to be stretchy again. It's gone. They're done. Tomorrow it's not going to be any better than it was today. Are you waiting for this style to return? Unless you're a pop star. If you're wearing your bell bottoms from 1974, you're wearing bell bottoms from 1974. They're not back in style. When they come back around, the designers are reinterpreting those styles. Are you waiting to lose or gain weight? Typically 3 sizes or more, you're better off just letting it go. If you've got the moo-moo in the back of your closet because you had bariatric surgery, you're not going to wake up 90 pounds overweight tomorrow. That's not your just in case, I got the moo-moo, right? Likewise, if you got a pair of skinny jeans that you think is motivating you to drop those last 10 pounds and you've had them for 4 years, it's clearly not working. And all you do is feel crappy about yourself when you pull them out, try to slip them on, you can't button them up. Crap, I still can't wear these pants. What am I doing wrong? Are you keeping this just because it was an expensive impulse purchase or a bargain you think you'll never find again? Neither of them are good enough reasons to hold on to something. All right? No gift is a burden. If you are giving things with strings attached, I invite you to cut those strings. And if anybody gave you anything, I am inviting you to let it go, right? Whether it's that horrible fruit dish that your mother-in-law gave you 40 years ago at your first wedding anniversary, you don't need to keep it and pull it out once a year so that she can see it. If it doesn't make your life more comfortable, convenient, or beautiful, you have my permission, not that you need it, to let it go. Value is not guaranteed. Just because you think something is worth money and you tell yourself, oh, I would totally let go, but I'd have to get X amount of dollars for it. You've already spent the money. So if that's the only reason that you're holding on to something, you've got a collection of Beanie Babies telling yourself, oh, they're still in the box. This is worth thousands of dollars. You need somebody else who agrees with you. Without the other person, you've got a plush toy, a box, and a story. Your dad is not the clock. Your grandmother is not the teacup. We cannot fetishize these objects and make them responsible for keeping our memories alive. It's an impossibility, right? And the last thing I'll share with you is that when everything is precious, nothing is precious. I worked with a private client on Long Island. We cleaned out her grandmother's house. There were 2 silver things were the last things we found in the house. One was a ball of aluminum foil under the kitchen sink because grandma had lived through the Great Depression. The other was a sterling silver tea set. Had we stopped right there, right? Grandma's gone. 2 silver objects. We need to keep them both. It's the last ball of aluminum foil Bubby will ever wrap a piece of tin foil around. It's precious. It's Bubby. And we have a sterling silver tea set. They're not the same. The ball of aluminum foil was recycled. The sterling silver tea set was sold at auction for $22,000. They're not the same. When everything's precious, you're living in a museum. And regardless of how nice your things are, chances are you're not in a museum. And if nothing's precious, you're living in a dump. And even if we go back to those very first photos that I showed you of somebody who has a hoarding disorder, not everything in there was junk either. Be mindful of always and never as absolutes when you speak about them. All right? And with that, I want to say thank you so much for spending this time with me.
So, wow, that was amazing, Andrew. I can really relate to a lot of the things you said. Even in your book, I read about you collecting records, and although I still have records, but I can't bear to get rid of them, hundreds and hundreds. But is there any is what's the most transformative story that you've heard, or that client that you've heard to help somebody? I mean, I'm sure there have been. Um, and what was the hardest thing that they had with being organized?
Oh, I mean, in all of the years that I've been doing this work, uh, people with hoarding disorder are typically the ones that struggle the most because they've got a lot of, they've got a chemical imbalance that they're dealing with on top of, there's pathology beyond just the neurotic way that most of us process information. So they've got an extra challenge to navigate. And I would say that in those circumstances, it's particularly challenging because they have multiple things they have to work against or work through. And again, progress is possible when they're willing to do the work and recognize where their both their built-in organic as well as narrative and applied boundaries or story lives.
I think the emotional attachment to a lot of things is probably the hardest. I know, well, especially people my age, we have things that came from our parents, and now we have older children who don't want our stuff, and now they're dealing with the stuff from the grandparents. And how do we like separate ourselves from that emotional when we have nobody else wants it when we have to clean it out? Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Well, that it just goes back to your dad's not the clock, your grandmother's not the teapot. That that you have to get clear about. You're not throwing grandma away. You're not giving grandma away. You're just letting a set of china go that nobody wants. It doesn't mean it. It mattered to them, and they lived a different way than we live. Let alone our kids and our grandkids. They're they don't have the same emphasis. First of all, they're far more transient. They're not going to have a dinner party for 12 people and use china and silver. It's nobody entertains like that anymore. And it doesn't mean that the things don't have value. You can certainly sell them at an estate sale. You can donate them. Somebody might want to buy them, but for the vast majority of people who don't live that way, it's just recognizing that the fact that we've inherited them or they were important to somebody else doesn't mean that they have to be important to us and that we are bad children or bad stewards or, disrespectful or not appreciative because we don't want to keep them. And certainly we know for ourselves that we would never do that to our kids or our grandkids to say, well, you're bad because you don't want it. And yet we absorb all of that ourselves and tell ourselves, oh, I feel so guilty. I feel so ashamed that I don't want these things. And I'm going to hold on to them because if you do, your kids are going to give them to the Goodwill as soon as you're gone, right? They're going to come back. They're going to sit Shiva and then that stuff is all going into the Goodwill.
I could see it. As I said, the same thing with photographs. Another boxes of old photographs. I know you mentioned that in your book of people you may not even know who they are.
And if you don't, Your grandkids, certainly. I mean, the only things that those old photos are useful for is maybe a costume department, or, somebody who wants to, like, what did the cars look like in 1945? What were people wearing in 1945? Because you're doing a community theater production of Our Town and you're trying to get ideas for costumes. But if there's people in those photos that nobody knows, this goes back to time being a precious and limited resource. Why spend a lot of your time digitizing those photos, even if nobody really cares?
Right. There is a question from Elizabeth in the chat. She says her husband wants to hang on to everything. He has 3 paint trays in the garage. He thinks they need all of them. I think we don't need any of them. We don't even have paint. Help. This is just one example.
Sure.
He has tools everywhere. Can he change at 87 years old? How can I make this happen?
So, can he change at 87? Most definitely. How can you make it happen? You can't. How long you been married? I mean, you know exactly who you're married to. The first time you started to live together and you saw how he did things, you knew exactly who he was. And if you've been spending, whether it's 5 years or 50 years waiting for him to change and thinking that you're going to come up with the perfect way to get him to change, he's not going to change based on you. He's going to change based on himself and it mattering to him. And otherwise, you're going to live. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? I mean, he's 87. How old are you? You're probably better off just letting them sit there. And as soon as he's gone, when you come back and after you're done sitting Shiva, you can pack them all up and throw them in the garbage. But if you want to be happy for the remaining time that you're together, who cares? Really, who cares? If he doesn't want to let them go have an ice cream cone with him and take a walk around the block. You'll be happier. And it's, in the scheme of things, it's not that important.
That's probably good advice for a lot of us. I don't know.
Yeah.
What we always want to replace things break down, and we keep the old one just in case. Just in case.
Yeah. If the toaster's not working, the toaster's not going to be working next week when your new toaster breaks. You're going to go back out to the store and get another toaster. You're not going back, and you're not going to have a toast emergency where you need 3 toasters, right? I mean, borrowing our friend who has 3 paint trays. For those of us who can think rationally, you're never going backwards. So all of that, just in case, the catastrophizing that you think that you're preventing by holding on to things, the reality is somebody right now is at a Goodwill or a thrift store looking for a toaster. Let them have it. They want to make toast, and they'll take your faulty toaster that still sort of makes toast but isn't beautiful or perfect. Let them have it. Keep your current toaster, and again, be grateful and thank your lucky stars that should your new toaster break, you have the resources to go get yet another new toaster.
Right. And what do you tell somebody that's starting a project like this and they really feel overwhelmed? I mean, what's the best advice that you could give them?
Well, as I said earlier, right? Go big or go fast. If you want to just get some momentum, go for the low-hanging fruit. Pick up the junk mail. Pick up, hang up your clothes that are draped over a chair in your bedroom or on the floor that didn't quite make it into the hamper. Go for the easy things that are sitting on surfaces that don't belong where they are. You'll feel a tremendous sense of movement when you just pick stuff up and put it away. You don't have to do a lot, but that little bit of movement will get you going. And again, if you're feeling like completely inspired after this time together and you're thinking, I want to clean out the garage or I want to clean out the basement, go there, just set a timer so that you don't get overwhelmed, and just go work for 15 minutes and see if you can work uninterrupted for 15 minutes at a time.
So, is there anything you would change in Unstuff now that you've had some experiences and talking to people and working with people? That's the new one.
This is this 14 years later, I've updated it, and this will be available, I think, starting on January 14th.
And
So
what's changed in that one? What have you seen change?
now, in this fully updated, enhanced second edition, Mellen addresses modern clutter challenges, including digital overload, social media distractions, the rise of paperless environments, while still providing his timeless systems for conquering physical clutter. So, I mean, we certainly take on the digital world. When I wrote that book, I think I probably wasn't on AOL, but I think we were still on dial up and some high speed internet connections. It wasn't ubiquitous. So there's a lot of that. And then I've made things simpler in the book. I've removed all the references to Virgo Man. As soon as the book came out, I basically rebranded myself as Andrew Mellen because it was too hard for people to understand. Those who didn't understand astrology were like, "What's Virgo Man?" or like, "What? I don't understand what this is." So,
what is Virgo Man, Andrew?
oh well, I mean, it's what a client called me, right? Because I'm a quadruple Virgo, so she called me, "Oh, you're Virgo Man," right? Like I'm a superhero of organization.
I see.
That's where that came from.
Are there any other questions in the chat? Anybody else have any questions? You want to raise your hand or okay, Anne has one. Anne, unmute yourself. Can you? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, now you can.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie.
Concern with whose work this.
Oh, who's speaking? Oh,
By that's me. Oh, in other words, I'm an artist. I cut art from floor to ceiling on all my walls. And I've given enough to the children, and they don't want any more. As she said, they don't want any more. What can I do with that art while I'm still alive? In other words, I know what they've told me. They told me when I'm gone, they're going to give it to Goodwill, and it breaks my heart when I think about it.
Right. So I'm going to speak frankly to you, Anne. That's exactly what's going to happen to it, and you might as well, get some of the joy out of giving it away yourself instead of having it happen after you're gone. For you, I would encourage you. Glass half empty is nobody wants my art. Glass half full is I had an amazing time creating this piece, and that was the point, not holding on to the finished work. It was the act of creation and making the work. That's where the juice is, not in having to worry about the finished product. So give it away, sell it, donate it to local organizations, let them donate it or give it away or auction it off, but focus on the art of creation and making the work and let go of worrying about what happens to it afterwards. I mean, Van Gogh painted all those paintings. He sold one of them while he was alive.
More.
So,
Way ahead of him.
yeah. So then, why don't you focus on enjoying the experience of making the work and letting other people enjoy it, whether you make money for it or not. If you don't need the money, if it's not like you're going to starve because you didn't sell the work and you can afford to keep buying art supplies because you like to make things, make them. Just don't stay attached to what happens to it when you're finished with it.
Yeah.
Anne Hornstein.
Yeah. So if things don't have a commonality, like and like, and they're taking up space, where do you put them?
Well, what's an example, Anne?
Okay. I have perfume, I have mail, I have eyeglasses, I have clutter on my dresser. But I don't have a place for them. Oh, they stay there.
Well, perfume goes with perfume. Eyeglasses go with eyeglasses. I mean, so I'm not following. Where are you getting snagged? Help me with where you're getting snagged.
Once I move them off, I have to find a place to put them. Sure. That's the question. How do you find a place to put them?
Well, so if you zoom out, right? I mean, instead of being in the place of overwhelm, right? Zoom out and just observe your home objectively. If I needed a pair of eyeglasses, if I had to go looking for eyeglasses anywhere in this home, where would the most logical place be to go? Would it be in my office? Would it be in the utility closet? Would it be in the front hall closet in a basket? Where, if I had only one home to find eyeglasses, where would I put that? And then go and establish the home for it there. It's a little bit of a domino thing at the very beginning because you're going to have to displace something to create the home. But as you do that and you group like with like, it will become easier. And you'll also discover, oh, among the glasses, I have 10 pairs of readers that are 125s and I'm a 175 or a 250. So I don't need to hold on to them. But now that I see that they're next to their siblings, I realize, oh, I have a bunch of stuff that I'm not using anymore. That's a thing for everybody. when it comes to decluttering, bring all of the like objects together first and then make the decision about what stays or goes. Because each one thing by itself, you'll convince yourself, oh, I love that sweater. Oh, I love that sweater. Oh, I love that sweater. But when you put them all together, you're like, oh, I have 20 black mock turtlenecks. 3 of them had holes in the elbow. 1 of them has a weird snag on the front of it. 2 of them, the waistband is loose. I don't wear those. Those are my just-in-case mock turtlenecks. When you see all 20 of them, it becomes easier to say, these 7 I can retire easily and I'll never be naked. But one off, you're like, oh, I love that sweater. It was a Donna Karan. I got it on sale at Nordstrom Rack. I love that sweater. I look so good in it 15 years ago, right? So this way, you group them all together and then you drill down and make your decisions about what stays and what goes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, there's a couple of people that have asked about suggestions for appraising and consignments, and also how do you consider archival value?
Yes. I've written several blog posts about the secondary market for antiques, artwork, and things like that. So if you go to my blog, andrewmellen.com, Mellen, M-E-L-L-E-N, and you go to the blog, you can find those posts. I mean, they're voluminous, so it's in 30 seconds. I can't tell you, but if you go there, it talks all about the secondary market and what to do. And the one thing I would say is, if you're going to try to sell something at auction, make sure that whoever's appraising it is not also somebody who sells it. You don't want them to have a horse in the race. You want an objective appraisal where they say, this is what you can realistically expect to get for something, not I can lowball it and then I'll sell it.
We'll put your website in the chat as well. Yeah. Well, we're at about an hour. Does anybody else have any questions? I don't see any hands or anything. If so, Stephanie, do you want to? There's a bell.
I just want to mention the next one.
I'd put something in.
Yeah, does somebody want to say something? I hear
I put something in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we miss it? Go ahead. What was it, Barbara?
Can I hire him? I'm very sure
Yeah, of course you can. If anybody wants to hire me, you can just send an email to hello@andrewmellen.com, and my assistant, Kristen, will talk to you about what's possible.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. I still see some private clients.
Wonderful. And also, please do buy the book. That's how we say thank you to the authors who have given us so much of their time. I want to invite you on January 13th, which is next Monday at 3:30. Our group of JCCs is doing another program. It's and Tobias Buck wrote a book called Final Verdict: The Holocaust on Trial in the 21st Century. We have a very good moderator from my JCC, Alex Bruner, and we hope you'll join us for that. Your JCC will send out the link to you for that. And as you all probably know, we have a whole series of these running through May. We're doing a lot of programs together. Andrew, this was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks to all the JCs that are participating, everybody who's tuned in to watch. It's such a privilege and a pleasure to partner with you all. Thanks for inviting me. It means a lot to me that you saw value in the work and that you invited me into your homes, literally and figuratively. So thank you.
Wonderful. I think we're going to go back home and get organizing now, right? Absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you all. See you next week. Bye. Thank you, Nancy.
Hey, everybody. Thanks.